Right. All right. It's recording. Cool. So welcome everybody. We're kicking off today's XRM Virtual, the first of 2021, with our session, create a functional, interactive, and meaningful chatbot with Power Automate with Artur Zielinski. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Yes, spot on. Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Excellent.
Hi.
So just a couple of housekeeping things. We'll hand things over to Artur. So as a reminder, we're recording right now. All of our events are posted on the website, XRM Virtual website. We got a couple more coming up we'll go through in a second, and keep an eye out if you want to follow us on Twitter at XRM Virtual. Shout out to our sponsors. 365 Training is where we're hosting everything. Lots of good stuff there. Futures is my organization. Click Dimensions obviously does some hosting and outreach, and Microsoft definitely helps us a little bit with the platform and all the tools we're talking about. So we have a couple of events coming up. The Ukrainian Power Platform Saturday. Artur, I think you're speaking there as well, right?
I'm not sure. I've not actually had a response, but I believe so. I definitely submitted a session.
Okay, cool. I think we have you on the list. We'll find out soon. But that's coming up. That's going to be a nice one. It'll be an all-day event starting on January 23rd. Keep an eye out on the portal because I want to make sure we got the time zones correct. So check out the portal. The sessions will be updated soon. It'll be a nice keynote speaker, but it'll be nice another all-day event for the Ukrainian team over there. We have D365 HR Starter Pack Reloaded coming up with Anna on the 26th. So right after the Saturday event or the all-day event, we'll have Anna kicking that off, and then we have another one coming up with Enterprise Document Generation using Microsoft technologies with Igor Shvets. On February 9th. So those are just some upcoming events. We got a few more in the queue we'll be posting soon. We're just getting the details of those, so definitely keep an eye out. Lots of good stuff kicking off the year. And here's a little bit of information about Artur, and I'll just hand things over and you can get rolling.
Yes, hey, thanks everybody. So morning to all of you in the PST time zone, and evening to those of you who joined in Europe, whatever other time zone, you know, hi, basically. So yeah, I'm Artur Zielinski. I've been doing this for a while. I've been speaking at various events on chatbots and conversational AI. Some of you may have heard me speak at various other events. So today's session, I'm really going to take over the screen because there's enough of my mug. So let me know when you can see it. Is my screen visible?
It's good.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's start with the basics. So today's an hour is really about how to use Power Automate to build some extremely powerful AI applications or chatbots. And to do that, we're going to be using this thing called CRM Bot, which I'm sure some of you, at least if you've seen me talk before or seen any of my content on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, associate myself with CRM Bot. So CRM Bot is a product that me with a few friends have built and released, well, just as recently as 3 months ago. It's on the Power Automate connector. So if you go into Power Automate, create a flow, and type in CRM, we actually the first connector that comes up. And yeah, really the clue is in the title. It's an ISV application that sits on top of Power Automate and enables you to build chatbots quite similarly to really how Click Dimensions, one of the sponsors of this event, uses, you know, their own application to sit on top of CRM to build an email campaigns or marketing campaigns. So I've got a really small slide deck that talks a bit more about the concept of conversational AI and how people sometimes confuse it with a chatbot or sort of. I mean, you can still call these chatbots, but there is a difference between a chatbot and conversational AI, and this is more of on a functional side. It's very short slide deck, and then we'll go through the in-depth demo of the product and the capabilities, and hopefully maybe we can then start having some sort of debate about potential use cases, and I can advise on, you know, what's doable, what's not doable, what's in my experience, what has worked before and what hasn't. Are there any questions before we begin? No? Sounds good. Okay, if there are any questions, just shout. I'm not actually seeing the screen, so don't raise your hands, just unmute and interrupt me. I'm more than happy to answer questions as we go along. Otherwise, just put them in a chat window and I'll look at them as we go along. So first of all, I'm just maybe gonna make it a little bit smaller. I hope you can still see it. So yeah, first of all, chatbots. I mean, I'm sure I'm not being controversial here when I say that it's really something that has been hyped up a few years ago as the sort of next big thing. And, you know, I've personally not seen a massive revolution. You know, I'm you know, dealing with most of the organizations you deal with on a daily basis. You don't actually come across virtual assistants that often. And then when you do, they're not actually that amazing. You know, I mean, you know, there are some chatbots that can simply answer a question and maybe take you through some basic process. But I've not seen personally examples of this really amazing AI-driven applications that, you know, Google have been showcasing 2 years ago. You know, this amazing audio sort of chatbot that can book you a restaurant on your behalf. But none of this stuff actually came to fruition. So yeah, it's interesting, but the revolution is still definitely waiting to occur. And the reasons, there are reasons for it. So I mean, the biggest reason really is, well, the big reason is obviously the price, that it's not cheap. It's not cheap because building this sort of application from ground up takes a lot of effort. And it takes a lot of effort because the skill set is not that known. And the skill set is not only technical, so you need to know Node, you need to know Python, you need to be an AI expert, but you also have to have this conversational design skill set, which is really, really weird. Not a lot of people actually know how to write chatbot conversations. They're not used to it. They're used to writing forms, and there is a big difference. And finally, one of the probably the biggest reason is that so many companies invested so much in applications, portals, mobile apps, that a lot of the companies we talk to, they tend to think, you know, I've already got a portal, I've already got an app, or maybe I'm already spent so much money on online forms. Why would I now want something else that does the same thing but slightly different? So the customer experience here is the new battleground, and you really, you know, all the research sort of points to people wanting to use these sort of applications more and more. So these are some of the reasons why it's not happened yet, but this really should not be taken as excuses. So the solution to this, the solution is really to look beyond the simple chatbot and look at conversational AI. And the definition really is that it allows you to build intelligent enterprise chatbots powered by company data, not running manually collected, you know, sort of question and answer sort of scenarios or point-by-point instructions, but using the company's own data. And in our case, obviously, we're talking about Dataverse, you know, working on Dataverse, using that data to drive engagement. So there are some further slides. I'm not going to waste your time on the marketing spiel. What's really interesting, however, if I just scroll down, is the use cases. So that's just the last slide I just wanted to show you. So these are some of the things that we've already demonstrated on our YouTube channel, on our website, the showcases for those. But these are some of the examples of things that you can do with chatbots that you're simply not seeing on the market. So from bookings and inquiry management or marketing and sales. So obviously, you know, getting new leads, but also getting up-to-date prices from line of business systems. You know, a lot of the times, a lot of companies have situations where a customer wants to get a stock information, price information, technical guidance. You know, maybe they want to manage some sort of complex booking. That's not just simply, you know, Calendly widget that shows you available time, but maybe something a little bit more complex. You should be able to, or you should be thinking about offering your customers ability to book on a platform of their choosing. That's really a key point here, is that the difference between conversational AI and an application that's a, you know, portal or an app sitting on a phone, on somebody's phone, is that you're able to go where your customers already are. And, you know, when I say customers, I mean, you know, it could be employees, it could be stakeholders, it could be anybody, you know, like if it's a local government, you know, it could be citizens. It's not really customers, doesn't mean just B2C customers, but wherever these people, and it tends to be people, are, you can actually be there with your offering or with your service. So you really eliminate the barrier of entry, which I see so often, that you drive to, let's say, a car park, and I don't have any cash on me. I don't tend to carry cash and coins these days, and I have to pay for my car park. And usually on the side of a payment sort of booth, it says, want to pay online, download our application. And I'm like, I'm never going to be here again. This is the 5th car park application I'm downloading. Why do I have to download your application and register for an account with you if I just want to park here? Wouldn't it be better if you actually came to me on my already existing, Messenger, WhatsApp, TikTok, whatever, Snapchat, you name it, whatever IM or sort of identity application you have on your phone with you, the company should be there offering that service there. The same goes for the local housing association or your council. Why do I have to go to a council website to report a graffiti? Why can't they actually offer this where I am or where I actually spend my time? So that's really the main point. From customer service, similarly, obviously dealing with complaints, recommendations, suggestions, but also, upselling new services, cross-selling, taking payments, issuing documents, driving user engagement through loyalty applications. So, a lot of the use cases that are quite interesting for retail are proactive, points. Let's say, somebody's buying something in a shop, and you can actually drive through to the mobile device a push notification saying, we've noticed you're here, let's give you 20% off. What's really important with customer service is the ability to proactively contact them when you need to. And we've got a lot of examples here about, somebody's reported an issue, and you can actually let them know the issue is being resolved, but not through the boring, sort of email or text message, but actually, let's say, on Messenger, on Teams. In some other cases, we've demonstrated how you can actually call your customers, and these are some edge case scenarios. But with CRM Bot, you've got the capability of actually initiating phone calls to your customers, advising them that something else happened. Obviously, if you have good enough reason, it shouldn't be done for sales or for cold calling, but if you've got a good enough reason, you can do that. And then audio, and I'll spend a little bit of time showing you the audio capabilities, but audio is really advanced sort of topic, but I'll show you some of the cool stuff, how you can build audio chatbots using Power Automate, using our platform, and that will be probably towards the end of the demonstration. So this is really it when it comes to the slide deck. Not sure if there are any questions at this point before we begin really the demonstration. So is everybody clear about what CRM Bot is? Sounds like it. Okay, let's crack on then. Okay, so as I said, CRM Bot is a Power Platform tool built on top of Dataverse and on top of Power Automate. So from a user experience, it's really just yet another application. So when you get onboarded, you just get this sort of application, CRM Bot. It's got some widgets, and it's here where you build your chatbot from ground up. So I'm not actually gonna build a new chatbot because I just thought I'm not gonna waste your time doing this sort of basic stuff. There is a lot of information online if you want to see how it's actually done. The onboarding process is extremely straightforward. You can get set up within sort of half an hour, and you've got your agent. But I'm just going to walk you through the basic steps of setting up an agent, and then I'll demonstrate some of the more advanced functionality down the line. So yeah, so this agent, I've got here an example called Student Bot, and we'll be working with Student Bot a lot. It's got its name, it's got the language description. You'll see that it's also got the knowledge base. Well, it actually doesn't have a knowledge base. I'll show you a different chatbot that has a knowledge base. And really the second part of it is straight away emulator, which in this case, emulator is not going to show us any interesting results because this is a Facebook only application. So in order to test this, we need to go into Facebook. But then straight away, we go into something called intents. And intents, if you've used Power Virtual Agents, these are essentially topics. So intent, we call them intents, they call them topics. But these are the main areas of the conversation. So you obviously need to have something that welcomes a potential customer. We then basically have something that gets the image, gets location, and advises them about tenancy. We only have 4 intents here because it's just a demo showcase. So intent is a topic. Entity is a it's a term that we use with. This is basically what conversational AI understands, is able to comprehend or parse from human speech. So, for example, if you say I'm 20 years old, the fact that you said I'm something years old isn't really that interesting to a chatbot, because it cannot really do anything with that information. But the number 20 in this case is age entity, and the chatbot automatically should understand that. So when you say I'm 20 years old, what the chatbot actually gets on their side is a JSON that says age equals 20. And that's what entities are used for. So entities are used to extract meaning from conversation, extract meaning and then do something with that meaning. So in order to extract that meaning, we need something called parameter. And parameter is really nothing but a variable that has an assigned entity and assigned intent. And essentially chatbot knows that when somebody gives their location, we should expect 2 parameters, one called latitude, the other one called longitude, and they're both basically numbers. And the chatbot will get this information, and then I'll show you in a short while what you can actually do with this information. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. We then have publishing details, so every time you publish, you just get this nice sort of interface that tells you that something's gone right or wrong. And authentication, which is really, a topic on its own. We could spend easily 3 hours talking about authentication, so we're not going to talk about authentication extensively today. So that's really the front-end experience. You also have a business process flow that you really can go through to make sure that everything is set up correctly in order to do your first publish. So basically, as you're going through the process, it sort of tells you that you've got your API, you've got it published successfully, fine. So the bot is now set up. It doesn't really do anything. It's just there to remind you what to do. And obviously, we've also built in a help function. So that's pretty much it. So so that's really, as I say, we're not really that focused on the building a complex. Like I know a lot of other conversational AI platforms, you get this very visual experience of building a dialogue of conversations. But the problem with that approach is that it tends to be really, really complicated to navigate conversations, and conversations don't tend to flow in that sort of A to B to C to D. They're messy, sometimes you can get interruption, or you can get, oh, by the way, I need this, and you need to be able to cater for that. So we found that actually decoupling the topics from themselves and offering each intent, intents, as almost self-encompassing bit of process is really, really important. Another important point to note is that within an intent, so I'm just going to open one, you have stuff called, you have a lot of functionality that relates to actually how to steer the conversation around. So you have an ability to enable multi-language support. We'll talk about that later. But what's really important are events and contexts. So events and contexts, so using event, you can actually trigger an intent programmatically. And that makes probably very little sense to you now, but in a short while, when I show you the fulfillment module, it will make a lot more sense. But basically, I can, based on some arbitrary decision, let's say we've got some data in Dataverse that says you're a male, we can actually steer the conversation into a topic or into an intent dedicated to male audience, or female, we can direct it to female audience. That's maybe a bad example, but you see what I mean. And contexts are really important in order for the chatbot to not be stupid. So without context, chatbots are essentially amnesiac. So you say something, then you say something else, and what you said 2 sentences ago is forever forgotten. Context allows you to pass those memories of what happened in the past into the future conversations. The classic example is, you're booking a train ticket and you want to say, I'm going from here to here. So you have 2 questions. Where are you going from and where are you going to? If you don't use context, you will struggle to actually join those two bits of information, because by the time somebody says what they're going to, the chatbot will forget what they said from. So it's really basic, but the context can be applied to both input and output, which means that with context you can actually control the flow of conversation. So for example, you may have three very similar intents that do really the same thing, but using context you can make sure that when something is being said after a specific sentence, it navigates to the right path. I'm realizing that this may be a little bit confusing, so I'm just going to I'm just going to take us to our docs page, just to basically reassure you that if this didn't make much sense, all of this stuff is explained in our docs pages in a lot more details, with some examples and some videos, etc. So, you know, there isn't really that much that you need to worry about remembering now. And yeah, I mean, yeah, we've been talking for a long time about this, so I'll better move on to the more exciting stuff. I'm sure none of you are too particularly confused by this. Let's start showing some exciting stuff. So before we do that, I'm just again gonna ask if does anybody have any questions or anything they would like to point at this stage? No, still all good. Great. So. Right, so let's just show you how this stuff works. So I'm just going to open my messenger. Apologies, this is my private messenger, so it could be random stuff here. But basically, it's the way it works is we've got our student bot on Messenger. You say hi, and then it responds with this sort of message. Now, how did it know what to respond with? This is where we start talking about fulfillment. So responding to a user query can be done obviously statically. This is what everybody knows, that you can build a chatbot that when you say hi, it says hi, not a problem, or hello world. It's really basic. So we've got obviously this, we support this, that you can build a manual or static response. But what's really interesting is that when I said hi, it actually knew who I am. So in order to do stuff like that, you need to actually employ Flow. And we all know Flow, or Power Automate as it's called now. And we use Power Automate for all of our responses. And this is really a key differentiator. It's not optional, it's really mandatory for you to do that. But it allows you, as opposed, again, I'm trying not to, but I'm going to just once again compare briefly to the virtual agents, is that the main difference is that with CRM Bot, your entire response is written in Power Automate, which gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more power because you can respond with arrays, objects, variables. You're not limited by having to pass that variable back into a virtual agent application. So in order for this, when you see this hi there and this answer, I'll just walk you briefly through what that flow looks like. So we've got our when intent is detected. This is our trigger point, and it says, you know, whenever somebody triggers welcome intent on any platform, what we're then doing is we're searching through contacts or students in our Dataverse, and we're using the user ID that the CRM bot has passed to us in order to find the right user. And you see, and this is really a key point, because I'm using Messenger, I don't need to ask who you are. I know who you are. You don't, if somebody talks to you on Messenger or Teams, you don't guess who they are. You see the name. And it's similar with the chatbot, because you're using a platform that has a built-in authentication. You don't need to worry about this stuff. And because CRM Bot is so helpful, it's actually passing you the user ID from that application. So because I already exist in my tenant, so I'm actually going to go into my other application to show you what I mean. So I'm just going to go into cases and open this latest case, open this contact. So this is my contact, and it has this messenger ID. And you see, this is essentially a value that Facebook provides that is unique to you, never gonna change, and it's impossible to guess or impossible to sort of make up. So it's absolutely safe. to use it as a basically user ID. Of course, for some additional instances, you may want to employ some multi-factor authentication, but this is a simple example where we want to just submit a submit a picture. We don't need to worry about extended authentication. But the crucial point is after we list that student, we're just using a simple count formula to essentially check that we found a student. If that is greater than 0, so if we basically say, you know, hi there, full name to report a case, just take a picture anywhere, and then we send that response. And you see, because I've built that, because CRM Bot is built on top of Power Automate, you know, if we wanted to actually add another response, it would be as simple as essentially typing CRM and then choosing one of the following options. Let's just choose text, adding a platform, adding, you know, we can add some emojis, why not? And then all we need to do is include that second message in our save it. And now when I say hi, see, now we've got 2 messages, including the ones we just created. So it's that simple to essentially control the flow of the conversation. I'm just going to delete it now because I forget about having it later. But it's that simple to add new functionality to it. But you see here how using our conditions, I can actually steer the conversation into a different way. So if I actually don't know who you are, I can point you towards a totally different response, or even in fact here I can send you to a different event or apply some context to it. So remember when I said that it's really important that we use those events and context for advanced use cases where you want to steer that conversation. So that's our welcome, our really basic flow, and then, you know, it's already actually has some functionality. Now let's show you something really a lot cooler, I think, which is the next part of our conversation, because it says to report a case, just take a picture anywhere and send it. So I'm actually going just to do it from here, but let's imagine that I'm on my mobile and I'm basically going to just send a picture that I've just taken. Let's say I'm walking around Hall of Residence as a student and I see this massive dump of rubbish and I take a picture of it. So instead of actually having to navigate to a portal and saying, what do you want to submit? I want to report a case. Have you logged in? What type of case it is? Just take a picture and send it to us. So you now send this picture and you see that the chatbot understood that this is overflowing bins. And the next step is sharing location. We'll move on to sharing location in a second. But you know, so if I just take this apart, what's happened, you've sent an image, which is just a collection of bytes, and the chatbot understood that this is, you know, that this is a overflowing bin. How? Well, we're using Custom Vision, and this is just an example. So I'm just going to, I actually have to sign out and sign into a different domain. Just 1 second. Let me just sign in with my other account. So we're using something called Custom Vision, which is one of the cognitive services that Microsoft offers. And this is a really simple model. So you upload a bunch of images, you tag them as stuff, and then you train it, and you get this API that allows you to essentially predict, in real time, predict what type of thing it is. So if I uploaded a picture of graffiti, it will recognize it's graffiti. And the way it's being used, it's really straightforward. If I open my flow, you know, I'm not going to go one by one and explain what each of these things mean, because that gets a little bit, you know, there is some JSON modification. But basically, when this intent is detected, get image, for every attachment that I receive, so every photo that somebody sends is an attachment, I make a call to this chatbot housing cognitive services Azure, and I'm then passing the response, and then I'm building a response. I'm getting basically a prediction from that service, and then I'm applying that prediction. What I'm also doing after I send that response is I create a case in CRM with that prediction. So if I navigate back to my contact and look at the cases this guy has, and look at the latest case, you'll see that there is a case I've just created, which is the overflowing bins. And that case actually has the image that I've sent. So this is the image that the user in question has sent, and that's attached in your database. So yeah, so that's really an example of how you can apply AI models like cognitive services to your conversational AI to recognize speech, text, images, you know, calculate stuff, make predictions, you know, all sorts of capabilities are there.
Looks like we lost Artur. We'll give him a second to reconnect.
Hiya.
There he is.
Hi, I'm really sorry. When did I disconnect?
Only about maybe a minute ago.
Minute ago. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I'm sorry. I've changed my domain from one domain to another, and I didn't realize that this is obviously going to affect Teams. So hopefully you did not. I was afraid that you've lost the last 5 minutes, but only a minute ago. That's not too bad.
Yeah, okay. You're good. Go.
Yeah.
Continue where you left off. I think we're good.
Yeah, cool. So sorry about that. So my second bit that I wanted to show you is really the next step of this conversation, which is sharing location. And I've shown this multiple times in the past. I've got this recorded on my website. So I'm really sorry, but on the 7th of January this year, Facebook has released the latest version of the API. And in it, they've actually included some changes because of privacy laws in Europe, which means that I'm in UK, I'm blocked from actually using the service that I was using in the past in order to share location. So the next step of this demo was to actually demonstrate sharing location. I cannot do that. In order for me to do that, you're just gonna have to watch a video. So I'm just going to open the, sorry, let me just open my YouTube channel, CRM Bot YouTube channel, where all of this stuff is. And let me just show you this video. Doesn't have any sound, thankfully. And it's exactly the same chatbot that you've just seen, but you'll see that it's actually, it's got slightly different things, but basically I'm submitting so submitting overflowing bins. It's going to now recognize that these are overflowing bins, and now I'm going to share my location. And this was actually when I was in Florida last year on the event. So this is from the Tampa Bay event. And now it's going to basically recognize the address. So that's done using another connector that we've got here. But as I say, it's temporarily not working because of Facebook API changes. I'm sure Facebook will fix that soon. But basically here we're using Bing Map to grab the longitude and latitude, and then we're responding and logging that against the case. Apologies, I cannot show it in more detail because of the sadly what Facebook released on the 7th of January, but I'm sure it will be fixed sometime soon. So right, so that was really the AI part of this and really the basics of fulfillment. Now, the next part of the capability that I wanted to show you is the knowledge base. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to navigate to a different chatbot, and this is going to be our live chatbot. That's our sales bot, which is our sort of main chatbot that sits on our website that people can correspond with to see what CRM Bot is all about. And this chatbot has actually quite a bit more functionality than the one you've just seen. First of all, it's got a working emulator. So when we build a chatbot within Dataverse, you can actually use this emulator to basically see what you've got and test as you go along. So you don't need to leave the platform in order to test. Another thing it's got actually a React-based front end. So we are not limiting you in terms of how do you want to style your front end application. So on our website, we've got this sort of experience, which is this sort of pop-up that you can move across the site, and it sort of looks like that. But you can absolutely change that. It can be bigger, it can be round, can be green, it can be, instead of being a pop-up, it can be embedded, you know, and because it's a React application, behind the scenes, you can build even custom cards or custom designs, which I'll show you in a bit. But that's really another huge bonus of our web approach. And the third one is the knowledge base. So here you see that I've got essentially this connected to a knowledge base, which is the QnA Maker. I'm not sure if some of you have used QnA Maker, but it's a Microsoft product which is I'm not gonna say free, but it's almost free. I mean, the pricing is so generous that, you know, I've never actually had to take it outside of a free pricing tier. It's like 50,000 questions a month is free. And here I've got an example. It's actually a different tenant. So again, I'm not going to sign out because you know what's happened last time I did that. But I'm just going to show you on this example. This is another, one of the clients we're working with. It's not live yet, so it doesn't matter. But you see here, you can essentially design your questions and answers. And this is for the basic question and answer. So Q&A is not meant to be really that powerful. It's just basically being able to answer what user says. You can add alternative phrases. You can and you can, in your responses, you can add stuff like URLs, images, emojis, etc. And you can import all of that from your website or from your document. So if you've got already an Excel or PDF, a lot of companies have those PDF FAQs. You can simply import them here. But after you've created that bit and you've tested this, okay, let's just do it again, and let's just actually very briefly test this. So I show you the testing experience. And you see we're using Q&A, and it's got a very nifty feature called small talk, which means that you can actually don't need to cater for all those sort of, I don't want to say stupid, but you know, a lot of people, when they see a virtual agent or a chatbot, they just want to break it. They want to say something that the chatbot will not understand, will not be able to deal with it. And you can obviously write those answers yourself, but it gets a bit boring. So what we've got is up to, you see there's 13 pages of examples. You can really try to break it. But you're not going to have a good time trying to do it. Well, and you can actually, when you do it, it's quite cool because you can actually define a persona. So you can say, when you actually set up a new one, do you want it to be friendly, witty, professional? So you can actually do that. So what we've applied for our Q&A is funny. And that's because this is our personality. We're not trying to pretend that this is really corporate. It's really not. So you see the responses you're going to get if you try to be, quirky with the chatbot. They are going to be sometimes quite cutting. So yeah, so you see, it's basically very, very difficult to break it. But if you ask something meaningful, so like what are chatbots, it's actually gonna respond with something meaningful. So the question on everybody's mind. But basically. You can do all that. So that's the Q&A functionality. So instead of defining all those questions in Dataverse, you do it in a separate application provided by Microsoft. It's really easy to use, really free. You just need to basically set up a set up an Azure resource and use that functionality. So that's it on Q&A. The next point.
Artur, real quick, kind of curious, who's the target audience for that? Because I think one of the questions would be, do you need to be a developer to maintain that content? You know, how do you put this in the hands of somebody who's functional but not a developer? Is that what this Q&A is for?
Yeah, the Q&A is really not meant to be done by developer. You tend to just give it to your marketing people. You can export it into Excel and give it to them and then import it back. Or you can just ask them to work with this sort of interface. And I hope you'll agree with me that it's really easy. Like, you know, if I need to add a new question, I just add this here. Here is the answer. I can add my emojis, etc. It's really not that complicated. So the developers.
So this is meant for the content person.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I was just kind of wondering about the licensing on that too, but that's what you were talking about.
This is the QnA Maker pricing. I mean, let me just. I don't even know, to be honest, because I always use the free tier. But you know, up to 50,000 transactions per month, it's free. And then, you know, it's £7 for a limited managed document. So I really would not worry about that. Unless you're a massive organization, it's never going to cost you anything, you know, so look, next to free. So
cool. No, that answered my question. Thank you.
Brilliant, no worries. So essentially the whole application I've been showing you for the past 40 minutes is really meant to be for a functional people. The way we tend to operate with organizations is that in terms of technical setup, we run this 7-day prototype where we sort of set it up for you, you know, in terms of any integrations. And then for technical consultants can work with Power Automate to build that fulfillment. And the functional guys can work on the conversation, writing questions, answers, content, and just testing. And that's a really important point. You just have to test this stuff a lot before you're able to go live. So anyway, we've only got 17 minutes left and I still got quite a few things to show you. So the next thing that I'll show you is language translation. So one of the key problems that people found is that chatbots for companies that operate in multiple languages are quite expensive because you have to sort of write the same stuff 5 or 6 times. And now if you consider this Q&A I've been showing you, you know, there is 13 pages of those questions and answers. And that's just a small example, you know, it can be much bigger. Now, how do you cater for multiple languages with this sort of stuff? Well, it's luckily, CRM Bot comes with automatically built-in real-time translation. What does that mean? It means that every time somebody sends a message or you send a message back, the proxy that basically our service, which sits on Power Automate, is analyzing the language that is being used, and then it's adapting the response that you've provided. You tend to write everything in English. Well, I do, at least. So let's say that you wrote this entire bot in English, but somebody actually asks you a question in Polish or in French, in German. What will happen is your response, let's say that somebody says hi, but in a different language. What the chatbot does is actually it recognizes that it's a different language for hi, translates it into hi, tells your system somebody said hi, gets your response, and then translates it back into that person's language in real time. So yeah, so I'll just show this to you. I don't speak that many languages. I'll try a few. So first of all, I'm going to try my native language, which is Polish. I'm sure, have we got anybody on a call from Poland? I think I've recognized one name that sounded vaguely Polish. I think he's no longer here. I think he's dropped off. But you can trust me that's correct. I'm not sure. Do we have anybody on the call that speaks any other language than English? Just so we can verify this stuff. Okay, maybe not. So I'm gonna try the Portuguese. I'm gonna try to German. I'm going to try Russian.
You got one in the message from Larry. Check out the chat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't know what it says.
Oh, I have no idea. Let's see what it answers with. Right, I have no idea. I have no idea what you just said, but I don't know. Maybe tell us what that.
I've asked how many years does a badger live? And
Okay.
the answer is how many people does it take to screw the light bulb?
Yeah, it doesn't know, unfortunately, answers about budget's lifespan. But but you see that in basically it took basically for every I think it's every time you ask a question about how many something, it answers with this how many humans does it. So it's like a standard response, but it was translated into I don't even want to guess. I don't know what language that is. South African, maybe? I don't know.
Lithuanian.
Lithuanian. Yeah, I was gonna say Lithuanian. So this is real-time translation. Now, I hope you all agree that this is quite powerful. Obviously, what's important to remember is that this is using Google Translate. So you're using sort of out-of-the-box service. So some terms may not be translated right, which is why I briefly show you this. When you send your response, you've got this option when you want to use a custom dictionary. So CRM Bot supports you supplying custom dictionaries, which means that there are certain terms that your organization may want to translate in a specific way. And you can actually provide those terms in Excel, and this is what Google calls custom dictionary. And then basically, when you use that custom dictionary, those terms will be translated in that way. Similarly, you can actually skip certain things are not being translated. So for example, you see here that the menu options are not being translated. It's just the text itself that gets translated. So that's a huge time saver for companies that are multi-language, and it doesn't really require any effort from you when you're developing your stuff. You can just write it in one language and it will work with, well, every language that Google Translate works with, which is pretty much every language. So that's it on natural language, on translation. So the next thing I want to show you is audio. So audio is really quite unique, and I know a lot of people are, how do I put it? There are a lot of companies that specialize in audio, and the reason we've included audio in our showcase is because it's such a huge area of growth that so many, and when I say audio, I don't mean necessarily Google Assistant or Alexa. That's one side, but the biggest impact is actually telephony. So that's why we've integrated with Twilio, as well as Vox Implant, SignalWire, most of the telephony providers, but the most important one is Twilio. And with Twilio, we're able to essentially get a phone number, which you can call, and the chatbot can then do stuff, or as you will see here, gonna demonstrate how we can proactively make phone calls. So here we've got a flow that is a proactive flow, and that flow in the trigger isn't actually CRM Bot. The trigger can be anything. Imagine that you've got a situation where, I don't know, somebody was meant to return a car and they're nowhere to be found, or maybe there is an emergency situation, or maybe there is something. You can then build a response which is actually written in text, and we have those tags, speak tags, and this is really quite interesting. You can actually design in your text speech components, use this P, this is for paragraphs, basically to make sure that the voice actually breaks for sentences. You can include break times, you can include emphasis, accents. It's really quite powerful. I forgot what its name. I always tend to forget, but it's like, I think it's called Amazon Language Tags. I think it's called Poly. There you go, Amazon Poly. Yeah, that's the library we're using. So you see here some examples of what to say, and say as, speak, sub. So it's really quite advanced. And again, I could spend easily an hour talking about this stuff. But basically, you have an ability in Power Automate to drive this. And then what we do is we send a proactive messenger. All we have to do is provide a phone number, which can easily be something that you store in your database. And then you can just send that text message. So I'm just going to, I hope I'm still, let me just actually keep sharing my screen. I hope I'm still audible. And I'm just going to press run on that flow. Okay, so I'm now getting a phone call, and you can listen to this.
Oh. We are sorry. an application.
Sorry, let me just try that again.
This is a showcase of CRM Bot's capability of sending proactive messages. You can use it to simply call your customers when an important business event occurs. For example, as a car rental company, you can decide to phone your customer if the car is late for collection. You can give the user an option to connect to a human, or perhaps book an extension of a rental with your fully automated virtual agent, or simply call them to wish them happy birthday.
And then it disconnects. So this one is really straightforward, where it just tells you a message, disconnects, but this can easily be a conversation. So again, you've got capability to not only look at web or messenger or Teams, but also look at audio and how you could integrate that with your existing telephony solutions or maybe call center. It's really, the possibilities are really endless when you consider that channel. But what's really, really cool is that you can actually build that functionality in Power Automate without leaving Power Automate. So you really don't need a lot of technical skills in order to get this stuff to work. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are some things I've not covered, but I've tried to be as brief as possible. Apologies for the technical issue, well, my stupidity really, when I disconnected the Teams call. And I'm just gonna want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions, and we've got 7 minutes left. So I think I'll stop at this point. If there are any questions, I'd really, really welcome them. If you want to know more, just go onto our website and get in touch. And yeah, that's
this is Jim. I have a quick question. So let's say, and I'm a novice on this stuff, so pardon if it's kind of a novice question, but so how does the underlying infrastructure or your solution handle scale? Let's say you put this out to Microsoft Store, you get, because they're so popular, you get 10 million hits an hour. I mean, something crazy. Do you rely on the platform to scale, or do you do anything in your application, your tools?
No, so the application, we're really transparent about this. We're essentially a API sitting on a sort of Kubernetes, Microsoft Azure and bot framework. So we're using Microsoft technologies here, and Microsoft, well, basically when you sign up for an agent, you build on your own tenant what's called channel registration app in your Azure, and the entire solution is scalable using essentially Azure components. So maybe 10 million a minute you'll probably struggle with getting anywhere that capacity, maybe AWS. But I mean, we've run tests on up to 50,000 transactions per minute, and the API performs with 99.999 SLA reliability. So there is absolutely no issues of scale. The pricing obviously will drive hugely then, because obviously the price is dependent on the number of sessions you're having, but the scale is really not a problem.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and again,
I didn't know if you had to code anything special, or
no.
It sounds like you're just relying on the infrastructure.
We're relying on infrastructure. The entire solution is built with scale in mind. So we're building for sort of big implementations, but obviously the solution is also quite happy to work with people who have, you know, maybe 2 or 3 interactions a day. It really makes no difference. And it's because it's Kubernetes, it's all cloud, so you're not paying for extra stuff. You're just paying for what you're using essentially. Cool. Yeah, no, it's really good. Cool. Any other questions? Well, guess not. Well, thank you very much for listening. I really enjoyed myself. I really thank you, Jim, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And yeah, as I say, if you're interested in finding out more, please go onto our website. I'll just finish with this, that we are we're a young startup. We're looking for people to work with, and we're running this free prototype offer, which means that if you're at all interested in this, there is no obligation required. You just talk to us for half an hour, tell us what you need, and we will spend 7 days working on something fantastic that you can take to your decision makers and demonstrate to them what is achievable using this platform without any obligations whatsoever. So we're just trying to basically get the message out there that this sort of stuff is doable. You can do it now. You can do it now. You don't need to wait, and you certainly don't need to pay a lot to get this stuff done. You just need to work with the right people. So on that positive note, thank you very much. And I hope
thanks for sharing with us. Appreciate it. And we'll get this posted up in a little bit, probably end of day, maybe tomorrow. We'll have the video posted for anybody that missed it.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.